you bought yourself a study Bible. Cost you a lot of money, just a pretty penny because it's good information. Now you want to know, how do I use this thing? Welcome back, everybody, to Joe's Bibles. This is Joe, and today we're going to talk about study Bibles and how to use them. So I use 3 study Bibles: the John MacArthur Study Bible, the ESV Study Bible, and this one. This is the NASB Study Bible from Holman that I had rebound by Logos Rebinding, which I did a video recently of it. And I primarily use it for sermon prep and also daily devotionals, 1 chapter at a time. So I think the first thing before you open a study Bible, even before you buy a study Bible, is to ask yourself why. Why are you purchasing or using a study Bible? Maybe you want to do a deeper devotional every day. Study Bible is useful for that. Maybe you're like me, you've got to put a sermon together almost every week. Also helpful for that. So ask yourself why. Why am I using a study Bible? For what purpose? Meaning, are you going to study a whole book of the Bible? Are you just going to study a chapter of the Bible? My recommendation is to get the most out of a study Bible is to study whole books of the Bible. So for instance, our church is preaching through Genesis this summer. The first 11 chapters of Genesis, that's what we're preaching through the summer. And so I want to study the whole overview of it, but I'm not going to study all 50 chapters. So the first thing that I would do before I do a whole book study is I go to the book introduction of Genesis. So here we are in the book introduction for Genesis. And what I'll do is I will read all of the book introduction materials. So here's the opening page. So I already read the book overview or the book introduction in this Holman Study Bible. And this is broken down in a few parts in the book intro. You have the circumstances of the writing, which goes over the author, the background, and then also goes through the message and the purpose. And then a third section of the introduction is the contribution to the Bible. And then finally, there's a structure section, which is really important. Now, a good study Bible is going to have an outline. Even a rudimentary basic outline is helpful, but I think the more detailed it is, the better. Now, the ESV Study Bible and the MacArthur Study Bible, they do a great job of those book outlines. Now, what this one has too is a timeline underneath, not just of the events of Genesis, but really the bigger events of history. So after I've read through the book introduction, now I'm going to read the text. And this is what I'll do first. I will first read through the Bible text once, twice, 3 times if I can. And then so after I do that, then I will read the notes. And let me give you a reason why. You don't want the notes to dictate how you are reading the text. I think you should really wrestle with the text first, get to know the text, get to know the details on your own before jumping into the notes. Because the notes are commentary that a human being has put together, or maybe several human beings have put together. And so you want to engage with that, but also you want to keep an eye to criticism also, because there may be some things in here that you don't agree with, meaning the notes. So there may be things in the notes that you go, that's kind of funny, I'm not sure. And so you want to just take it with a grain of salt. The key thing is understanding the Bible text. So that's why I say read it twice and then go through the notes. And so this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to read Genesis chapter 6, and then I'm going to read the notes after that. Okay, I finished reading the Bible text twice, and then the corresponding notes, or all of the notes, in chapter 6. And that took about 30 minutes. So if you were to do a devotional time, that would take up most of your time, but it would be a very rich time of devotional. Now, I'm going to show you some of the things that I underlined in the Bible text first. So some things that stood out to me. So first of all, this chapter is about the continuing downward spiral of man after Adam and Eve sinned in the Garden of Eden. The first underline I had was multiply on the face of the land. Now that echoes the command from God to Adam and Eve, right? To go and multiply. The other part is the Nephilim, because if I look through this study Bible again, I want to quickly know, oh, this is about the Nephilim, at least the first 4 verses. And then I put verse 5 in brackets because this shows us what the Lord is seeing and what he is feeling, which is kind of a bizarre thing for God to have feelings, right? But this says that God saw the wickedness of mankind. It was great. Every intention of the thoughts of man's heart was just evil continually. Then I underlined verse 6 because I thought that was interesting. The Lord was sorry that he had made mankind in the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. That phrase is echoed in verse 7. For I am sorry that I have made them. Then it shifts to Noah. And then this is a big but right there in verse 8. But Noah. So God sees the wickedness of mankind, but there was one guy that found favor or grace in the eyes of the Lord. That's Noah. And so we're told in verse 9, this is going to be about his story. This is the next Toledot. These are the records of the generations of Noah. Then it describes Noah as a righteous man, blameless in his generation, and most importantly, he walked with God, right? Verse 9, Noah walked with God. Then we're told some details and some other things about how the ark was going to be made, some of those details. I also underline in verse 18, my covenant. In verse 20, that the animals will come to you. Noah doesn't have to go on this hunting trip or safari. The animals are just going to come to him. And then verse 22, and so Noah did these things according to everything that God had commanded him, so he did. So it shows the faithfulness and the obedience of Noah. And then after reading the text twice, underlining and interacting with the text, then I went back and read through and highlighted some interesting things in the Study Bible notes. Chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, I underlined that because I thought it was interesting. The first 4 verses serve as a transition introducing the account of God's greatest act of nature-based judgment on sinful humanity, which is to say these first 4 verses really serve as an introduction, meaning these first 4 verses serve as an introduction to really the Noah story and the flood story. Yet, they're so controversial. They're so controversial that this study Bible dedicates all of this text about the different viewpoints of the sons of God mating with the daughters of men and the Nephilim and who are they and speculation. Now, this is a really good study Bible by Holman because it covers 3 different positions on who these people were. So let me read to you the 3 basic positions that this study Bible outlines. The 3 basic positions have been staked out regarding the identity of these sons. They have been understood as heavenly beings, that's one possibility, as kings or men of high social status, second possibility, or third possibility, as men from the godly family in the line of Seth. Now, the study Bible here gives you what they favor, which is the third option. So here it is. The third position is the most popular view among evangelical Christians. It assumes that the sons of God were descendants of godly Seth, while the daughters of mankind were descendants of ungodly Cain. And it goes on and so forth. So, and it does outline too what the other positions are, but I like this. I have this preference about study Bibles that they will give you the different basic options of what these could be, and then they'll tell you where they stand. So I like that about this Holman Study Bible. I also colored in the phrase fallen ones. In this section here, no Nephilim would have survived the flood. In this particular study Bible, they give you these Hebrew words and Greek words that really just stand out or are really important. So this one is atsav, and this is found in Genesis 6:6, and it means grieve. Verse 14, or the note in verse 14, because of God's grace and Noah's relationship with God, Noah and his family would be saved. I underlined this detail. The 450-foot length made the ark the largest boat known to be constructed in ancient times. Verse 17, only after he commanded Noah to make the ark did God tell him why it was to be built. Now, that's another interesting comment to point out about the text. So anyway, this is what I do. I know this is a much longer video, but I hope this has been helpful. Hey, leave a comment down below. Let me know which study Bibles you prefer and have used. if you use one on a regular basis, and how you use it. Thank you for patiently watching this video, and remember, read your Bible.